Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Well, my first guest, Nick Keegan from Mail Metrics, decided to pivot his business when it didn't gain the desired traction. This proved to be a fruitful decision, with Nick now being shortlisted in the international category of this year's EY Entrepreneur of the Year programme. Nick, before we discuss the success which you've enjoyed with Mail Metrics to date, I'd like to get an insight into your own background.
Good morning, Karl. Thanks for having me. I started Mail Metrics actually when I was 24, so this is my first real job, if you will. I studied in DCU. I did a business and marketing degree, and I did a master's in international security and conflict. My plan was to pursue a full-time career in the Defence Forces at the time. That was kind of the trajectory of my life, for want of a better description. Served 11 years in the Reserve Defence Forces, retiring as a commissioned officer. And during that time, I had the idea for starting my own business, started playing around with the idea for what then became Mail Metrics.
So what was the nucleus behind the idea for the business?
Well, I think like a lot of startups, the idea that we initially started out with is fairly different to what we actually ended up doing. So the initial idea was that it was a bit of a pain for people to manage their online bills and statements. So if you have a telephone contract, you need to log into your telephone provider to get your bill. If you have a gas contract, and so on and so forth. You have all these different online accounts with different usernames and passwords to manage all of your household bills. And the idea was we could build a secure app on your phone that would consolidate all of these accounts together, and that you could manage all of your bills and your statements and correspondence from one app. Now, ultimately, that idea failed. That wasn't a success, but we managed to pivot a couple of times until we found a business model that actually worked, let's say, and where we could build a business on the back of it, and that's where Mail Metrics was born.
So what's the current business model?
So we work with highly regulated financial services companies predominantly. So think of your sort of pillar banks, insurance companies, your pension provider, and we help them to transform how they communicate and engage with their customers. So a lot of these companies are operating off legacy systems that were put in place in the 80s or 90s. And you'll all know when you, let's say, buy your insurance policy, they might default to printing and posting you out a letter with your policy documents. And whilst that might be fine for some people, there's other cohorts of consumers that would rather purchase insurance, manage their insurance policy, engage with their insurance company fully online. And basically, Mail Metrics provides a really slick digital interface so that consumers of financial products can manage their policy or their account or whatever the case may be electronically. And of course, then for the individuals that still want to receive a letter, and if that's what they prefer, we facilitate all of that too.
So how does the CX platform work, and what benefits can it deliver for businesses?
So essentially, when you buy your home insurance, for example, as you're going through that process of purchasing the insurance, you would opt in or out of digital communications. If you opt into digital communications, from that point on, every step in the process can be managed through your mobile phone or from your laptop, where you get your policy documents delivered to you securely. You could make an online payment. You can upload your proof of no claims bonus and so on and so forth. All of that can be done through the internet. Equally, if you're maybe of a generation where you prefer to do things through the mail, you can still get your documents as hard copy posted out to your house, or you can post in your proof of no claims bonus and so on and so forth. So we cater to all sort of demographics or all cohorts of consumers. I suppose the key benefits would be that it helps these companies to improve their customer experience, because the consumer can decide how they want to engage with their financial provider, whether that be your insurance, pension or bank. Importantly, these companies are very highly regulated, so we've developed the system in such a way that it helps them to meet all of their obligations to the Central Bank in Ireland, which is the regulator here, or the FCA in the UK, for example. And we take a lot of paper out of the process, so it also helps them to meet their carbon targets also.
Your target market today is financial services companies. Have you looked at any other industries that you can target next?
Yeah, so when we started out, we went quite broad. We would look at any sort of B2C, business to consumer, companies that had, let's say, a large customer base. But I think like anything in life, the more focused you are, the easier it is to kind of really get to the essence of the problem. So we double down on financial services, but we do have customers in sort of health and government also. And as we start to continue to scale up as a business, we are looking further towards local government, healthcare as other potential areas where we can scale the business.
And what revenue model underpins the business?
It's very simple. So it's a transactional model. So just like you pay for every letter you send through on post, you pay us for every communication that we send from our platform. So if we send an email, if we send an SMS message, every one of those transactions that goes through is a click essentially, and that builds up on your monthly bill.
And how many companies are you currently working with, and what's your retention rate like?
So we have relatively few customers for the size of the business, but the customers are typically large customers. So we probably have about 50 customers at the moment, spread across predominantly the UK and Ireland. And in terms of our retention rate, we effectively have zero churn.
And I've no doubt that many of the clients that you're working with have a presence globally. So is there an opportunity for you to leverage the relationships and the contracts that you have secured here in Ireland and the UK to actually expand your business with the same clients at a global level?
For sure. So that's something that we're trying to pursue at the moment. So in the early days of the business, we were very focused on the Irish market. I think that was probably a mistake of ours, but we were very focused on the Irish market. Now that we start to expand the business into other jurisdictions, particularly with some of the big brand names in financial services, they do have a presence, as you say, in many other countries. We're trying to leverage those relationships, and even if it certainly doesn't guarantee us a contract, but it's a warm introduction and it's a case study that we can reference where, we've helped them at other parts of their group around Europe. So that's definitely a strategy that we're trying to pursue.
And Nick, why do you believe it was a mistake to focus initially on the Irish market?
It's too small of a market. And whilst that might not be true for all businesses, you can probably count on both of your hands how many insurance companies, how many banks, how many pensions companies there are in Ireland. There's not a huge amount of them. Our sales cycle can be 12 to 24 months from first engaging with a customer to actually getting them on board. And so you just do the maths. Like there's not enough customers for that long of a sales cycle. So we definitely should have took a wider view, but I suppose you don't know what you don't know. So now that we start to look towards the UK, like we acquired a business in the UK in 2021, and that got us a good book of UK customers. We just realised the size of the UK market.
And in terms of the acquisition that you completed, what did you learn from that experience?
It's very interesting. I think buying a business isn't probably as difficult as some people may assume. The hard part is what happens after you buy the business. And almost definitely it's integration of the two companies from a people perspective. So every company, whether knowingly or not, has a company culture. And it's very difficult to define that or kind of distill what that is, distill it down. And when you buy a business, you tend to look at the financials and you want to make sure that when you're going through your due diligence that all the taxes are paid and that the numbers stack up and so on and so forth. You look at customer contracts. But the one thing you can't really do diligence on is the people and what kind of culture you're inheriting. So the two acquisitions that we made in 2021, for example, both of them have been a great success. But certainly even for two companies that are very culturally aligned, it's still a challenge trying to integrate people and processes and ways of working and so on.
And if you were to acquire a third business, how would you approach integration differently?
Both acquisitions that we've done have been larger businesses than ourselves. And I think that will probably be true going forward. And it was probably wrong of us to assume that those businesses need to always integrate with us, if you know what I mean. So there's often a lot of things that we will inherit and that they will do better than we do. I think we probably need to be more cognizant of that. So our strategy for the next acquisition, if and when it happens, will be to take a bit of time at the start to just pause, understand what we've got, understand what we do better than what they do and vice versa, and then create a plan jointly to integrate the businesses.
And in terms of emerging challenges, does the prevalence of artificial intelligence and its possible implications for business communications in the future cause you any concern?
I see it more as an opportunity than a concern, but like everybody, I think we're all looking around now saying, how is this AI going to disrupt my industry? And I think, to be honest, nobody really knows what's coming down the track. But certainly we're looking at how we can deploy artificial intelligence to better facilitate our product and the use of our products by our customers. So our platform manages both inbound and outbound communications. And so when I say inbound communications, that's a policyholder sending an email to their insurance company or sending a chat message to their insurance company to ask them a question about their policy or to ask for a copy of their no claims bonus. And that can be quite labour intensive to manage all of those communications. So we certainly see these new language models and these AI models as providing a lot of leverage there. So that's something that we're very interested in at the moment.
And of course, as I mentioned earlier, you're shortlisted in the international category of the 2023 EY Entrepreneur of the Year programme, and you've recently returned from the CEO retreat in Singapore. What did you learn from that, Nick?
The CEO retreat to Singapore was just amazing, to be honest with you. It can, I suppose, sometimes be a lonely role, and having a group of 24 other CEOs who've all sort of started and grown businesses to a similar level, who have similar experiences to yourself, that you can talk about certain things that you may not get to talk about every day. It's very interesting, and just to benefit from that shared knowledge and experience. And there's a huge support group in the alumni, which is hundreds strong now. It's just extremely powerful.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Nick Keegan from Mail Metrics, and I'd like to wish Nick and the team every continued success with their growth ambition.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.